Happy Devils Wednesday. This is the State of Fan Address, episode 326, titled Devils Fight Night. Coming to you live a little early today, noon Eastern, on this beautiful Wednesday, December 3rd. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch, and now on Instagram Live on the Let's Go Devils Network. Coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios inside the bunker in both North and South Jersey, covering the entire Garden State. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Nick Villano, pucksandpitchforks.com. I'm glad we're able to pull it off, Nick, because this condensed schedule has cutting in to the State of the Fan Address time slot at 8:30 p.m. Eastern normally. But now, we're up live.
Yeah, listen, we used to do it during the games, if you remember. But when you think of the logistics of it all and kind of like, this is the state of the fan, which we want to be, useful for the fan. And, you'd be dropping 3 podcasts every night on game days. And, 2 would be, they'd all be very different. The preview pod is very different from the post-game pod, which is very different from what we're trying to do here. So we appreciate everybody kind of rolling with the punches with us and sticking with it, but we're committed to making sure that we get you the State of the Fan Address, because honestly, it's my favorite 30 minutes of the week. I don't know about you, Sam. I love this show. I love doing the pregame and the postgame show when I get to do it, but I love this show just because it's a lot of fun. It's different because we get to kind of go deep into topics. We get to kind of really focus on things like today. I want to focus on, obviously we want to talk about that game on Monday. There's a lot that happened there. There's a lot of storylines that came out of it. But I want to focus on the positive. It's been a negative couple days on the socials. People are, but if you've seen a lot of other teams' socials or their Reddit pages or their Facebook groups, there's a lot of negativity around the NHL outside of, say, the Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of consternation and frustration among teams. It's just it's the condensed schedule, like you said, that has a lot to do with it. But a lot of teams are dealing with injuries. Like Dallas, who the Devils are playing tonight, are dealing with a ton of injuries. On top of it, they're playing Jake Ottinger, and he's really sick apparently. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Casey DeSmith gets to start again.
Mm-hmm.
They said it's going to be Ottinger, but these sicknesses, they're a little hard to track. So, but the one thing I want to focus on about Monday's game is I want to focus on how much the Devils are getting under other teams' skin. And I want you to compare that to how people talked about Florida for the past 3 years and how people talked about Tampa before that. Now, I'm not saying the Devils are built to be a dynasty. I don't think that. They don't have the right pieces in place right now. But say the Devils are playing like this, where they're getting under team skin. This is playoff hockey. As much as everybody wants to not admit, this is playoff hockey. This is how teams win in the playoffs. The problem with what the Devils are doing is they play this style of hockey, and it almost knocks them off their game a little bit, right? So in Detroit, they played the style of hockey. Detroit was so mad about everything that was happening, all the fights, all the consternation and the hitting and the forechecking and the frustration that comes from Timo, how he's playing, and even Bratt, to an extent. But then there's guys like Cotter, and there's guys like Nason, there's guys like Glendening who are getting in people's faces. All that to say, you see what happens on Monday night, and you lost, right?
Yep.
Columbus came in, and they, I see a lot of Columbus fans, and I think Columbus fans are those fans. They have a similar gene to Devils fans, where you kind of feel like, the Bill Simmons podcast, the biggest sports podcast in the world, and they called the Columbus Blue Jackets the most irrelevant team in the world, or I think it was the 4 major sports, and that's kind of in their personality, right? Like plucky little brother type energy. I feel like people would say the Devils have similar energy. So when you get those two things together, but one thing I think Devils fans will do will be like, well, maybe like that was kind of dirty, or or say something like that was borderline, or be like, yeah, that was a penalty. When Columbus fans and the reporters, because like a lot of things the reporters were saying was insane, but be like, yeah, well, Brendan Dillon started it. Brendan Dillon, with a glove on, kind of jabbed Vronkov in the chest, which is something that happens 40 times a game. Right, there's little like jabs, little like
so, pushing and shoving. Pushing and shoving is not a fight. I think that's where the interpretation from Columbus media and Columbus fans, I think that's where the stark difference is, because I was reading, a lot of things on X, from their perspective, but I kind of agree with your perspective, Nick, and I actually alluded that on the Morning Woo and on Devils After Dark. Your legal analysis and interpretation of the rule book.
Yeah. The rule book in that fashion. I'll get to the Siegenthaler thing in a minute, because I just thought that was. I still think. I probably should have wrote about it, but it just kind of ran out of time. The Dillon thing's insane because he punches him in the chest. The guy flips off his gloves and goes back to getting position on Dillon, and Dillon's like, oh, we're fighting. So you see Dillon trying to shake off the gloves, but the guy's pushing him back and forth to make sure he loses leverage, and then starts punching him. And then Dillon's still trying to shake off the gloves, and then while he sees his arms are way out here, and I don't want to pretend I know intent, because I don't, but when you see a guy like this and you yank him to the ground and then go on top of him like this, where for the listeners out there, he cocks back his arm and punches down while landing on Brendan Dillon's neck, which everybody knows has been surgically repaired. All that to say, to defend it afterwards is it's to defend it as anything other than that was a dangerous play. Don't want to pretend I know intent. Like, if you're a Columbus fan, if the Devils did something like this, like with Lucas Raymond a week and a half ago or a week ago, I can't remember the exact date, but like a week and a half ago, I think Raymond was like, I think he played the part, right? He fell pretty hard for Siegenthaler, but it was a penalty. Like, it was an illegal play that Siegenthaler did. They called it dirty. I think anything that you do that's purposefully illegal is dirty. So, right. Is it like the worst of the Tom Wilson hits? No. Is it the Brad Marchand hits? No. Is it, Matt Rempe? No. But I thought it was dirty. Columbus was like, Brendan Dillon started it. And that's it. It's like, well, Siegenthaler should have been kicked out. It's the rule. Tie down your jersey. Like, shut up. None of you knew what that rule was. Like, get the hell out of here. Yeah. And then, by the way, there's interpretations of that rule throughout the rule book where it says that he got the jersey pulled off of him, so he shouldn't be kicked out. There's other parts of the rule that say, it has to be pulled completely off his torso. Well, I don't think it's still on his shoulders, it's just part of his torso, so he shouldn't be kicked out. It says that if the other person is deemed to be the instigator, which very obviously, like, Siegenthaler was punched in the face 3 times before he even tried to take his gloves off.
Yeah,
I would say that's an instigator, and because the letter of the law with instigator is purposefully vague, and so the argument I made, Sam, and you're going to hate this, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is the article I wrote. I was like, there's too much going on. I need to figure out what I'm going to write about this. I think they should just end fighting. It's not 100% because of the injury factor of it, or like brain injuries, because I think that there's a way to do fighting to where you still get the value of fighting, but you can alleviate that. The problem I have with fighting is that the referees don't know how to officiate it. Mm-hmm. And fighting has been around forever in hockey, and you still don't know how to officiate it. So I think that there's they should have stopped the Siegenthaler fight the second his jersey came off his body. he clearly didn't want to fight the guy because he didn't want to go away for 5 minutes while Brendan Dillon was also out of the game. Like, he clearly had no intention of fighting, and he just kept getting punched in the face. Eventually, you have to defend yourself. They let Stefan Nason continue to fight even though he fell down twice. And then he got on top of the guy and punched him on the ground, which was, I didn't like that. Don't do that. Like, Nason, if you're on top of the guy on the ground, don't punch him again. Just, the fight's over. And they didn't get there in time. They are not doing a good job of officiating fighting. In the article I wrote at pucksandpitchforks.com, I compared it to the tush push, right? The reason for the tush push being banned in the NFL isn't because it's not a football play or it's illegal or whatever. The reason they want to ban the tush push is because the referees can't officiate it. They are not doing a good job of calling false starts. They're not doing a good job of calling encroachments. They're not doing a good job of calling the end of forward progress. They're not doing a good job of knowing when a fumble happens or when it doesn't. Like, it's too complicated of a play, and it's hurting the game more than it's helping it. And I think fighting has fallen into that territory, right? The positives that you get out of fighting have now been outweighed by the negatives because the refs don't know when to stop it, when to handle it, when to let it go. It's this giant gray area. And I just think that this was proof that it's stealing value from the game. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not like somebody trying to take physicality away. I think hitting should never be touched. I think that big hits are huge. Getting hit square in the chest and it being a thing, like, leave it. You've done a really good job of removing head contact, but I just think that they're just doing such. Or, Sam, you got to make the rules black and white. I'm okay with if you want to keep fighting and say a fight can only happen where two guys square up, take off the gloves, and then start. I'm here for it. I'm fine.
You see,
That's great.
You actually, I don't hate it. Actually, Nick, whatever you just said, I think you've got a lot of elements I agree with, but there's some elements that need to be refined. So let me explain. I think the number one thing, what makes hockey great, it's a very emotional sport. Fighting has always been part of it, right? I think we can all agree from the first time the puck was dropped in the NHL, there's always been fighting. The stuff that I don't like is staged fighting, like 30 years ago, late 90s, when Bob Probert versus Ty Domi or something like that. We all knew it was going to happen, and then they line up. We all knew it was, that was going to happen, whatever. To me, that we can get rid of that stuff.
About like McDermott, Rempe from last year? Is that similar to what you're talking about, or is that different?
Yes and no, because that was truly emotional. So I don't want to take that part out, right? But the stage stuff, all that, like the line brawl that in 2012, Devils versus Rangers, staged, but it was emotional. So that's that gray area. I'm talking about stuff where you knew that when Cam Jansen was in the lineup, okay, he's going to take on, this player, and then it's all over, whatever. It's meaningless to the context of the game. That stuff. The problem with fighting I have is the injuries. The players are bigger and stronger than they were 30 years ago. No doubt they were bigger and stronger. I think when the NHL tried to evolve and put the instigator rule, because back in the day with fighting, and you can talk to any heavyweight, and I talked about this on the Morning Woo, because I used to have a lot of conversations with Ken Belanger, former enforcer, LA Kings, New York Islanders, when he played. There was always this code, all right? That code. What was that code? It was respect. You're there to live another day kind of thing. But at the same time, when you fought, again, there was that code where, okay, You don't hit our player, we don't hit yours, that kind of stuff. It was almost like the players were policing themselves. As soon as the instigator rule came in and the NHL started to clamp it down for more PR reasons and yada yada, whatever the reasons were, what happened was everything got so bottled up, we started to see cheap shots left and right because there was nobody to enforce, nobody to protect.
The instigator rule it's not enforced.
Yeah.
So it should go away.
Yeah. So getting back to what you were saying, all-out ban, I don't think it'll ever happen, but I like the black and white approach.
Okay.
The black and white approach where, because honestly, both players, I think a player has the right to protect themselves by not fighting. They should. Because if they're forced to fight, such as, say if, remember when Nico Hischier accidentally went into Barkov's knee and they just attacked him, the Florida Panthers? Yeah. It was simply an accident. And then Nico was after the fifth time getting cheap shot, then he had to respond when nobody else was responding. I think the player does reserve that right, but at the same time, both Siegenthaler and Dylan, they didn't have their gloves off. They didn't have their gloves off in time. Either they're that fast or slow to react, or But I think with Columbus, I think they led with fighting, not okay. We square off and then we fight. If that even makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's
so yeah. They are two very different situations, but they ended in the same place. Just to kind of and your point is completely correct. But the Dylan one, Voronkov was pulling Dylan out of a scrum, and then I guess challenged him to a fight. But Dylan, Voronkov was holding him from behind, and then Glendening was also there trying to get him off of him, and then Glendening eventually kind of skated off and kind of let them do their thing. But again, Dylan didn't get his gloves off. And then it was almost the opposite where Raymond, I can't remember the other, or not Raymond, Fantilli, I can't remember the other guy that was with Columbus, were going after Connor Brown, who was picking fights. I don't love kind of how he went about that, but it is what it is. It's, Fantilli was going 2-on-1 on a guy, and his gloves were already off, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
At least one of them was off. And then Siegenthaler went to grab him, and Fantilli was trying so hard to wiggle out of it and just kind of fight. And, it looked like punches from the naked eye from a guy who doesn't understand hockey, but it was clearly he was grabbing with gloves. Your gloves aren't very mobile. They're not hands. They're gloves.
Yep.
They're very, I played lacrosse a lot, and similar style glove in lacrosse and hockey, they just don't. You can't open your hands.
Yeah.
So he's trying to grab him with these little pincher things like a lobster, and Fantilli's just shaking out of it. Little wiry guy, and people are like, well, Siegenthaler threw the first punch. It's very clearly no. Very clearly, Siegenthaler tried to grab him, and Fantilli wriggled away and started punching him, and then pulled his jersey over his head. Which why is Siegenthaler getting kicked out of the game for someone else pulling a jersey over his head?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's for his not being correctly tied down, but that stuff isn't secured with something. It's secured by a button, I think, right? It's a little snap button.
Yeah,
that's not. You know what I mean? It's not exactly the foundation that's going to hold from a professional athlete pulling on it. It's. I feel first of all, that rule's idiotic. The rule itself is dumb. That got Siegenthaler kicked out, but also the referees you have to take some certain discretion to effect. So my dude's supposed to just continue to get punched in the face, stay in the game, and not ruin this chance that his team has. Insane. The fact that happened is insane. Nobody would have been like, "Oh, refs missed this rule." You know what I mean? We have to have nuance here. We have to have
Sorry, Folks, we're just having a little technical difficulties. As you may know, we lost Nick's feed for a quick minute right there, but we do not have internet at the bunker today. Said this earlier on the Morning Woo that they're working outside. So right now we're using a Starlink right now to do this podcast. So hopefully we can get Nick up and running in a couple minutes. I'm not sure why we lost Nick's feed, but we shouldn't have lost Nick's feed. But anyway, so just give us a quick minute here. Sorry, folks. This is what happens when you do live. We're using the Starlink right now. We have lost connection. Let's try to get it back up. But Nick, if you're listening out there right now, try to log back in. Give us a moment. We're just going to put the podcast on pause. Stand by. You're back, Nick. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, just yeah, you were gone for about 2 minutes. I was just about to call you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But just to finish that point off, and we can kind of wrap this up a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll just do a quick one. Just to wrap up the point, the Devils are already in a situation where they have a lot of offensive defense in the lineup. You can't have Cholowski in the lineup anymore, and that kind of proves it. Because even if something as small as like Brendan Dillon go to the penalty box, or Jonas Siegenthaler go to the penalty box, now your penalty kill is way down where you have to put out guys like Luke Hughes and Soma Nemeth on the penalty kill.
Mm-hmm.
And putting them on the penalty kill is different than like Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes being on the penalty kill, who, can turn their defense into offense. Like, you need guys to stay back on the penalty kill. Like, you can't have somebody as aggressive as Nemeth on the penalty kill. But when you have Cholowski out there, and Dillon or Siegenthaler takes the penalty, you're really in a position of you're in a bad situation. And then the Devils end up getting the worst possible situation when Siegenthaler and Dillon both went out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just think the refs handed them the game. It is what it is. Like, those nights are going to happen. There's going to be bad calls, and you're going to lose the teams you shouldn't because of the referees. And that is what it is.
Yeah.
The Devils, and again, I don't want to take Jake Allen off the hook, because Jake Allen was bad. He was not good on Monday night. And they really needed a good Jake Allen game. Like, to give up the Miles Wood goal right after you get it to 4-3, like, these I'm not the goalies is one of the reasons why I'm not worried about the Devils this season, because you've had a decent Jake Allen year. And it was good. It was really good up until Monday night, but he lost you. That's the second game he's lost you in his last 4 starts. And Markstrom's lost them at least 3 games. And they're second in the Metro. In a very competitive Metro. Like, everybody's winning games. So I'm not concerned about the season overall, because I know Jack's coming back. I know Pesci's coming back. I know McEwen's coming back. McEwen's very important, by the way. Because real quick before we leave, I do want to do something on the fourth line. But you're getting all these guys back eventually. Dodanov's going to come back. You're going to have a really good lineup eventually. Kovacevic is going to come back. You're going to have a plethora of these pieces at some point this season. And I can't see Allen and Markstrom being this bad all year. I almost think it's possible that Markstrom could stay this bad, because he was this bad all year in 22-23.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's possible that – and by the way, I did write an article. The Devils cannot buy out Markstrom. It's not allowed. They can only trade him before his contract starts. So for anybody who's asking, they cannot buy him out. So I did see some other podcasts talking about that. You got to look at the rules. You can't buy out a contract that hasn't started yet. The one way they can, Sam, is say they take Arseny Gritsik to arbitration. And then after arbitration, there will be a second buyout window. And since his contract technically started, I have to double-check the rules. But based on the letter of the law, they'd be able to. But again, that's do you really want to take Gritsik to arbitration just to buy out Markstrom? I don't think, to buy out Markstrom. I don't think you do. So we'll just go with probably not possible. But just to get back to your point, to my point, I'm not worried about the season. I like the fight that I've seen. I like what I've seen from this Devils team. I like everything they're doing. I think they've really built a good roster that's just incredibly injured right now. No team is doing well with their depth. Everybody's fourth line stinks because everybody's hurt. But I do want Sheldon Keefe to stop using that fourth line. Like, they need to play 5 minutes a game. That's it. It's unfortunate, but like it's Glendening and Lemico have been awful. Awful. I have the stats right here. The trio of Glendening, Nason, and Lemico have allowed 2 goals and have scored none. But as far as like chances go, they have allowed 6 high danger chances and have only had 2 while on the ice. And overall, they've allowed 31 chances and have only had 10 on offense. So they come onto the ice and immediately pin to their zone. The goalies are taking on artillery from the other team. And then without Nason, but Glendening and Lemico together, they haven't allowed any goals somehow, but they've allowed 36 chances and only have had that same 10 chances for, the same 6 high danger chances against. And then, there's other combinations. It's funny. Lemico on his own is fine. Glendening on his own is fine. But together, they're terrible. Lemico has played.
Stay at NHL 500. I'll take it because we're only talking 500. I'll take it because we're only talking just a matter of another 4 weeks of this.
Overreact to the Devils' playoff positioning right now.
Yeah.
Overreact to the Devils' playoff positioning right now.
Yeah. So, all right, Nick, you got anything to plug?
Just go to puckspictures.com. We do talk about the schedule upcoming. They got some games against. Just go to puckspictures.com. We do talk about the schedule upcoming. They got some games against the Knights coming.
PM Eastern for Game Day Live, and then Devils After Dark after the game, where Scotty of SiriusXM, Liquid Metal, and I will recap the game that was. Thank you, Nick.